Good morning. It is time for That Davis Show. I'm your host, Kenneth Davis. Follow me at That Davis. I'm lucky enough to be joined by executive producer of That Davis Show and flipping friends, Ryan Bukoveski. Follow him at Ryan B. Ski and Ryan B. Ski 1. Ryan,
you are lucky with this early in the morning that I'm here with
you. Yeah, especially when you're on mountain time. So I'm fortunate to say the least. All right, but let's go off top. All right,
take it
from the top. The tippy? All right, off top. Because I didn't have one this morning, but then I realized, because Ryan says there's usually something in your brain, and he's correct. And what was in my brain was I was watching something last night with Afton, and it was this something with like HBCU's former presidents. And it was one from Prairie View A&M who had also been like the president at, I don't know if she was the president at Brown. I think she was the president of Brown and another prestigious university. And there was a sister that I'd seen before that was in charge of Spelman, her alma mater, and also she was a fellow ACA. And the thing that AK. So the thing that stood out in the discussion was the lady from I believe it's Ruth Simmons, and I'm going to forget the sister from Spelman, but Ruth Simmons was saying how at one point she was kind of irritating me, right? And I couldn't realize why I was irritated. And so that was like, we're irritating one another. And she's like, I just respectfully disagree. And it's like, wait, I don't know if we should just respectfully disagree on this one. I'm gonna tell you the instances of what stood out to me. So she was saying, for instance, they were talking about how, and if you can't even see this, like if for instance at historically Black colleges, you really don't see to a certain degree, like for instance, you're not going to tear up your own school, not to say when you're protesting that you're tearing up anything, but it was kind of discussion on how perhaps they don't let them fully express themselves when it comes to protests at historically Black colleges. They kind of hold the students back. And I always have an issue, and this goes to my Dabo Sweeney issue with Clemson talking about, well, his players can't take a knee. When you're at these centers of learning and growth, you're never supposed to tell these students what they can't do and expanding their minds and coming to grips with what the world they want it to be is going to be. I think that's a very dangerous place when centers of learning tell their students that. So I'm always like, that's why when Dabo said that, it's like, dude, you're a college coach. College, you know what I'm saying? That's where you go to learn and find out who you are. And you're telling these players they can't do that because they have to come play football. So since they have to play football, they can't necessarily be themselves. I get during a certain time frame when they're playing for you or when they're practicing, there's a certain standard they have to be held to. But outside of that, you're telling them who they can and cannot be. So the lady was saying basically, we can have protests, but we got to find out ways that not protesting. She goes into talking about how she learned how to deal with different people, which is great. And I think that's good too. But my other side was like, yes, you have to be a person that is versed in dealing with the world, but you can't say that you still don't need people to stand up and protest, because we just seen from the summer the changes from what happened after the George Floyd protests, and also I think there was part of the break in the conversation was the difference between protests and looters, because the lady was saying, but you don't need to go to jail. And she gave us a caveat, unless it's for a good reason, which is like, wait, when we're protesting, because we're talking, the discussion was on protesting. When we're talking about protesting, we're not talking about you doing anything illegal. We're talking about you protesting and you being locked up because you feel that something is right. And I was trying to say to her, when you look at John Lewis and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, like all these people that we look back to, they got arrested. So you can't say being arrested is bad when you're protesting. John Lewis always talk about, some good misbehavior. And I didn't paraphrase that properly. But then the sister that was the president of Spelman came on, and she talked about a story of a young lady who in the 60s used to get arrested all the time, but would always have her homework with her and prepared and ready to go. And I was trying to point out to her, like, see how she's trying, like, she's not trying to diss what the other lady is saying, Ruth Simmons is saying, but she's kind of still pointing out, you shouldn't tell people, in this world that they shouldn't be out there protesting. But we couldn't come to grips on that. All right. And I hope it doesn't come up today, because it's going to be one of those things where it's like, and I mean, Chris, I know, like with you, I know you get the vibe, because that's something that I know is near and dear to your heart is a revolution, even though we have discussions on who can revolt and who can't revolt, as we saw on January 6th. But still, so I think you get the vibe of what I was trying to say, do you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, completely. Like, the big thing is in college, like you said perfectly, you're figuring out who you are in the world. Like, that is prime, like, growth area. Like, it's almost like, if you want to equate it to a metaphor, when you're almost like a plant or something, you move into a different pot and people move you there because they want you to experience a massive growth uptick. And they want to see what this plant can really develop into, and maybe that's the last potter before it gets put into the ground or something like that. Like, that is a lot of what college has to do for a lot of people. And it's not even just going to college, it's just that time period really in most people's lives. You're 18 to about 22. That's usually about the time where you start getting all the adult responsibilities and you start seeing the influxes of legality. Like, you get to vote at 21, you get to drink and all that stuff, so you're just going to kind of go through a massive growth spurt no matter what in those years. And especially when you're at an HBCU, and even if you're at a regular college, when you're just a college kid and you get a cause that you want to get behind, it's very easy for you to start learning about yourself in that way.
Yeah, no, I'm even at a PWI. It's still the same thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even putting it on necessarily the type of institutions, just saying that all the broad of those institutions. Also, at 18, you can vote. So that was it. So that's my off top for today. And now let's definitely dive back into the sports world, because here in Chicago, our world was rocked by a dude that, sometimes he beat the Bears, right? But sometimes he didn't, and we punished him. But we always kind of liked him from afar, and particularly when he was healthy. And I'm talking about Matthew Stafford, the quarterback for the Detroit Lions, being traded to the Los Angeles Rams. All right, for Jared Goff. Shout out to Jason Goff. But
we lost Jason again.
No, shout out to Jared Goff for 2 number ones and a 3. And listen, you couldn't have told me, and to let you know that I didn't know, I was ignorant. You couldn't have told me that you could have gotten 2 number ones from Matthew Stafford 2 weeks ago. And we've come to also know that the Chicago Bears were involved in that. But we've kind of talked about that on the show. Is I don't know if the Bears are really in, and I know the Bears would have had to pay a hefty price for trading us out of the division. But I wonder if the Bears are just using the rumors to sit there and to make us Bears fans feel like they're trying to do something. And then when they come up short, they're going to point to the fact that they was in on all of this. But getting back to the trade for the Rams, it's terrific. And also we finally get to see if Matthew Stafford is truly special. We know he has special talent, but we don't know if he has those intangibles. We do know that he's tough. But he's going to go out there with Sean McVay. Sean McVay, an excellent play caller. Now you finally get a competent quarterback to go with that defense. You're also telling that defense we're not going to waste. I'm talking about Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey in particular. I'm not going to waste your years with Jared Goff, regardless of the contract given to Jared Goff. I will say this one thing, though. I saw Mike Tannenbaum on ESPN come and talk about Sean McVay and really and he was doing it from a GM's perspective. And I'm happy he was being honest. But I felt like as a GM, he wasn't taking responsibility of being a GM. And his point was that I would look at Sean McVay and say, why 18 months ago were you okay and it was fine for us to re-sign him? And the thought that crossed my mind was, wait, Snead, you drafted him, right? Because I believe Snead was there with Jeff Fisher, right? So this was your guy. You wanted to prove that your draft pick was the right draft pick. I don't put that as much on Sean McVay as I put that on you. Now, if you're saying that I was hoping that you could continue to grow this player, but we both realized that he's reached his ceiling. Okay, but you can't blame Sean McVay, who did not draft the quarterback, or was not part of the team when the quarterback was being drafted, for the quarterback not reaching his full development. I mean, now, that if you're saying that you don't think Sean McVay is as special as you think, that's one thing. But still, I would say that Les Snead is really referring to Mike Tannenbaum, if he was in that situation. That's more on you for drafting that quarterback in the first place when, let's just be honest, and I mean, this guy isn't playing well either. You should have drafted Carson Wentz. But then getting back to the trade, on the flip side, looking at what the Lions did, hey, Lions got a haul. And if their general manager thinks they can get something out of Jared Goff, cool. Listen, or even if they're eating up 2 years of Jared Goff's hefty contract to get 2 1s and a 3 is still sweet. So like that was a nice trade for both teams. I know my friends from Detroit were ecstatic to finally get something, because you got to think, like last year. Let me ask you this: last year, and it's been discussed since Matt Patricia for at least the last 2 seasons before Matt Patricia was let go, that perhaps a trade to New England would take place because of the connection between Quinn, the general manager, and Patricia with New England. Perhaps they would send, because Brady was going to leave sooner or later, they was going to send Matt Stafford to New England. I didn't think at that point that New England was going to send back 2 1s. Did you?
No, I guess I just don't see Bill doing that. Maybe if Stafford was younger, but I think with just him being close to his mid-30s, I don't think Bill wanted to.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. And he doesn't look, and even more what you're saying is a more valid point than what I was saying, from the point of Bill Belichick doesn't pay a premium price for quarterbacks for the most part. When you look at it, like when you look at Jimmy G, he drafted him in the second. When you look at Brissett with the Colts, I forget what round they drafted him in, and we know that they drafted Brady in the 6th. So yeah, you're right. They probably wouldn't. But I guess the point that I was still going to make, a year or 2 ago, I didn't think, and sometimes I forget how young Matthew Stafford is, because I think he's only 32, which I feel like he should be 35. I feel
right?
He should be closer in age to Aaron Rodgers, Sam, even though they probably started starting around the same time, since Rodgers sat on the bench for 3 years behind Brett Favre. But for him to be 32, I'm like, he's a little bit younger than what I expect, even still having the problems with the injuries in the past. But I still didn't think you can get 2 1s. So shout out to Detroit for pulling it off and getting 2 1s. And shout out for the Rams jumping ahead, because the Rams, we also heard that they tried to see if Green Bay was going to trade Aaron Rodgers. Green Bay was like, get your ass out of here, which they should have. But to sit there and say, we're not going to wait around. We're going to get our guy and get out of here. You know what I'm saying? And even think about, a year ago, the Rams didn't think the Chargers, and I mean, the Chargers record doesn't convey it, but they didn't think the Chargers were going to have the talent when you look at what Justin Herbert may be if you get a competent offensive people around him. You know what I'm saying? So it's even more, I won't say it's uber pressure, but it's even more pressure to get everything straight, especially with the clock ticking, with how much money you put in and how many draft picks. What they haven't had a first-round draft pick, or won't have a first-round draft pick for like 8 or 9
7 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but in all, when you've heard about the trade Saturday night, what were your thoughts, Ryan?
I like the trade, I think, for both sides. I'm a little hesitant with Detroit just because you don't know when you go into the quarterback wilderness what you're going to find. Like, it sounds good. You got a bunch of first rounders, and maybe they can figure out that quarterback issue. But, you figure even if you go into the draft this year, if you don't get the right guy, by the time you decide that this guy isn't the right guy, you might not have those first rounders anymore. And then it kind of hurts you. And then you wonder too, if the Rams, they're already in the 20s, supposedly Stafford makes them better. I mean, those picks could be in the late 20s or early 30s potentially if everything works out the way that the Rams would like them to work out. So I like the haul that Detroit got. I don't know if that haul is going to be as good as it appears maybe when we get down the line, and especially not getting a first-round pick this year. Not the end of the world, like I said, but if the Rams, let's say, get to the Super Bowl the next couple of years, then that pick kind of sucks. 31 the next 2 years.
Yeah, but you have your pick. You have your first-round pick and that first-round pick. So let's just say you want to move up to grab a player, that it gives you the collateral to move up, but also you have it, like you even try to say you have a high second-round pick or the top of the second-round pick. You still have more depth when it comes to the talent before, say guys started getting picked up in the second round. So, I mean, I get it. You're still right. But also you're looking, I think we have to put this in, you're also looking for someone to take Jared Goff's contract, because that had to come off the books. So, so you still have to find a team willing. It'd be different if that was just 1 year, but it's 2 years. So a team willing to sit there and put up with him for 2 years, when we've seen, saying it's not that Jared Goff isn't tough, because you see him out there playing with that messed up thumb with the pins in it in the playoffs, but still he just he just can't read defenses just yet. It's just necessarily how it seems.
Yeah, and I kind of like the Jared Goff thing, because that's a perfect guy to have as a bridge quarterback to whoever the next guy is going to be in Detroit. And Jared, like you said, he's going to do some things for you potentially where you are going to look at it as positive. He's not a great quarterback, but if you put talent around him, they're not going to just be stifled and not developing around Jared Goff. Jared Goff, we know his weaknesses, his limitations, and he's probably not going to develop into a franchise quarterback, but that doesn't mean that he's not a decent quarterback at the same stretch, that you can have him for a couple of years and let him be that bridge to the next guy if you so choose to. And then I like your point where you brought up with Les Snead going after Jared Goff, because this is kind of McVay's going after a guy. Like, he had, I think, already a pretty close relationship with Matt Stafford. I forgot their connections, but they had some people that they connected over. And I already heard this report, like, basically as soon as the trade got done, I think Stafford and his wife and family are out in the islands.
Cabo?
Yeah, something like that.
What's the Sean McVay is in Cabo?
Yes, he went there because of the trade. They met up. They started to party on Monday. Like, this is McVay's guy. Like, he really likes Matt Stafford. He thinks Matt Stafford's the missing quarterback to unlock his offense all the rest of the way. He's got a number one defense. Like, this was McVay telling Snead, like, this is my guy that we're going to roll with for a couple of years and see how it goes. Because, I mean, if you do look at the numbers, and Matt Stafford's been on way worse teams, they're about the same between Stafford and Goff. And I think we all agree that Stafford's a much better quarterback. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, but we can't deny that Stafford, when he has had chances for success, he's never really been able to capture those either.
But, I mean, all right, he was in the playoffs 3 times. How many times has he had a chance? The only time was really when Schwartz was the head coach, and he lost control of that team.
I'm just saying, I think Stafford's not a loser like how he gets this label, but I don't necessarily think he's a winner either. I got to see a little bit.
And that's the point. I agree with that. I think that's what we will find out if he has the intangibles. I think that's what we're kind of saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he has those true intangibles that get you over the hump. But this is the thing, too, because I believe when we're talking about Jared Goff, and Jared Goff, as far as how good he has been, when you're like, he's a cool bridge quarterback, I think the point that we're also pointing out, or what we're not mentioning, is how much Jared Goff's success was due to Sean McVay. So now if Jared Goff was successful because Sean McVay, and I don't think Jared Goff I think he's okay. I don't think he's really good, but Sean McVay at times boosted him up into being a good quarterback. Now, if you put that behind a really good quarterback in Matthew Stafford, I think we could see perhaps you're going to get a lot out of Matthew Stafford. And it's the Sean McVay effect that I think may aid Stafford and fill in the gaps when it comes to him being a perennial winner.
Yeah, and definitely could see that happening, because I think the updated Super Bowl odds, and Vegas really likes these Rams, I think they're behind. I forgot who the top 2 were. I know Kansas City was number 1, and then there was somebody else behind Kansas City, and then they had the Rams.
Was it Green Bay? It had to be Green Bay.
Green Bay. It was Green Bay.
It had to be Green Bay. Green Bay. Yeah.
So even above Tampa, they have them for next year.
They put Tampa, but even look, because I mean, look at it like this: how many teams make it to back-to-back years in the Super Bowl that aren't the Patriots? You know what I'm saying? Like, that or the last team was what? Did Seattle make it back-to-back when they threw that interception?
I think that was.
Yeah, that may have been the only team that wasn't the Patriots, and outside of course, Kansas City doing it this year and doing it last year. But like. It's been a long time since teams have made it back-to-back to the Super Bowl, let alone have won Super Bowls back-to-back, which we definitely don't get into in a minute. But go ahead, Ryan.
I think everyone's buying into the whole idea that this Rams team has talent. They got the number 1 defense. If supposedly you get a quarterback that can run this McVay system, it should look pretty good.
Yeah, but every year isn't the same. Like, some years you think you're going to have the same defense. Also, you lost your defensive coordinator. Right, and you sit there and look. The Bears haven't been the same with Vic Fangio being gone. It's like, so you lose your defensive coordinator, and you just think you can take a position guy and promote him, and it's not the same defense. And also, those defensive players, man, we all know defensive players age faster than offensive players. A hell of a lot faster. And a defensive unit, when they're at their height, it fades quicker. Just from the wear and tear of being a defender. So that, again, I'm hoping that they do well, because I have no problem with the Los Angeles Rams, but just still saying it's still a wait and see. But I think they placed themselves where they necessarily needed to be by bringing in a really good quarterback in Matthew Stafford. But I do want to flip that Because what did that start to tell you about what may happen with Deshaun Watson? Because that was my next thought Saturday night was, whoa, if you can get 2 1s for Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson value must have jumped up. And I got an email from Sean Sierra, from Sean and Maya yesterday talking about what was an article about what the Houston Texans wanted. It was 2 1s, 2 young defensive players, and 2 second-round picks. And my first initial thought was, that's a lot, right? And if I think, and I said this on their show, I feel like if the Bears were competent, I would say that's too much, right? If I trusted, that they could figure out the quarterback situation, I'd be like, no, don't do that. That's too much, right? Especially if you brought in a young quarterback and you don't have to pay him for his first 4 to 5 seasons, because that's the benefit of having a young quarterback. You can go and spend on defense or bring in premium skills position on the offense because that clock on that quarterback, it doesn't tick for 4 years. But looking at how the quarterback position has been blundered so far, I would do it because I don't trust in Ryan Pace, and I really don't trust in Matt Nagy, and it's kind of like how I was kind of saying that I feel like Sean McVay may take Matthew Stafford to another level just from where he took Jared Goff. Now you're giving him a better clay to mold. I feel the same way about it's in a different fashion. If you brought Deshaun Watson up here, that Matt Nagy couldn't drag him down. It wouldn't be a hindrance to him because that's how good Deshaun Watson is. Even though I would want Matt Nagy to get Deshaun Watson sometimes to stop playing sandlot football, especially because he's slight, unlike Ben Roethlisberger when Ben was at his prime playing sandlot football. I worry about Deshaun Watson, and he's tough as nails and strong to be a thin cat. How many guys he's knocked over getting to the end zone. But that was my first initial thoughts. What were yours, one, looking at that trade from Matthew Stafford and what they got and applying that to Deshaun Watson, but also when I just mentioned perhaps what the Texans were looking for and your team, the Chicago Bears, perhaps giving up that. What do you think?
I'll start with that one first, and I think you hit it with the root. If I had any trust in Bears press to find a quarterback, I would say don't go after Deshaun Watson because you're going to have to pay up the nose, and I guess that kind of answers the first question. I would expect the price to have gone way up for Deshaun. I mean, I think the asking price to begin with was probably going to be 3 number 1s, even though that's not what Houston said. I think that's kind of what's expected, and maybe it's gone up to a 4th. Maybe it's gone up to a 5th if the ones aren't that good in, let's say, the Bears case where they're in the 20s. Maybe another team's offering up 3 or 4 first-rounders that is right now in the low teens or in the top 10. So you would probably have to throw in a 5th first-round pick to even have a chance, and that's a lot. Like if we're even considering 5 first-round picks, that shows how inept your ability to find quarterbacks are that you would pay that kind of premium. And I would say in the Bears case, you got to. What are you going to do? I don't trust Ryan Pace whatsoever to draft the next guy. Yeah. So there's no quarterback to sign in free agency. There's no Tom Brady again that you can go get or something like that where you just, oh boy, we got a bridge at least for a few years. I mean, there's not that guy out there. So you're going to have to draft or you're going to have to trade for somebody. It looks like the trading options are going to be Deshaun Watson, and that's it. Because even with Stafford, the Bears might have been in on it, but there was very, very little chance they were going to trade him within the division. Mm-hmm. You just don't normally do that.
Definitely. So even while you're discussing that, one thing that just jumped out of my head is this. If the Bears are serious, right, about we have to get a quarterback, you know what you got to do? You got to put up them 2 number 1s and probably at least a 2 because your number 1 this year isn't supremely high. What are they at 16? The Bears pick 16 this year, I believe. 20. They're 20. Okay, they're 20. And if you get a good quarterback next year, you would think it would be lower than that. So you're talking about two number 1s that are in the 20s, and perhaps a player. You got to go get one of these quarterbacks that you like this year in the draft. Like if you're willing to, like, let's just say you don't get Deshaun Watson, right? Because I'm telling you this, dog. If you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, man, miss me with that. And I mean, he should be better than what we've had. But if you're telling me he's the answer, then I got a problem because I know Kyle Shanahan can outcoach Matt Nagy. He can run circles around Matt Nagy's coaching. And if Kyle Shanahan doesn't think he's his quarterback, and you're going to bring him here, and you can't get what he got out of him, You just tell me we're going to do the same thing with a better version of Mitch, damn near. You know what I'm saying? Without the feet. Without the feet. You know, he's athletic, but he's not Mitch athletic.
But all the swag.
All the swag. Oh, porn star Jimmy. Be like, listen, you don't want these Chicago porn stars, Jimmy. You want those.
What porn stars in Chicago?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, right? You don't want these.
I think I'm gonna fail physical.
But no, so that jumps out to me, Ryan. That because if you're gonna exhaust every avenue, all right, and you can't get one of these good guys, because I'll say this, and this is just me, just my thought process. What if, for instance, Tua is traded because Deshaun Watson goes to Miami, right? And necessarily, we don't know how the Texans feel about Tua. Now, I would think they would keep him, but if they can get Miami's pick, but Miami has the third. They have the Texans pick from the Laremy Tunsil deal, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I think and we know the Texans suck this year, so I believe that's the third pick in the draft. So with the third pick in the draft, you can get whoever you after Trevor Lawrence, because probably Sewell. It looks like Sewell. Where do the Bengals pick at this year? Are they second or third?
Second is the Jets.
Second's the Jets. Who's third then?
I believe it's the Dolphins, like you said.
Okay, and the Bengals pick fifth. Then I believe they may pick fifth, because I know the question was where they're going to get the tackle from Oregon. Because if he goes second, then if you're at third, then you have the lot of all the rest of the quarterbacks. That's it. I'm just saying, if you're the Texans and you don't want to sit there, because why have Tua and some young quarterback? You know what I'm saying? Even though you could trade one of them, but still, and that may put Tua in play. As far as that's the point I'm trying to get to. That may put Tua in play as being something that they may ship away if they don't see Tua as the guy that they want to hold on to, but they probably would hold on to Tua. But just still pointing out some of the options that may take place with all these quarterbacks in the seats being. Damn, I'm gonna blank out on
the musical chairs.
Thank you, the musical chairs. I'm blanking on the musical chairs. Yeah, with the musical chairs. Listen, I don't want the music to stop. And
that game sucks.
That's all I'm saying. No, wait. So I can tell right there you weren't that good with musical chairs growing up if you thought musical chairs sucked. Your slide game, see, I know what it is. Your slide game wasn't good enough. Because you had to slide in under somebody. Like, that was what you had to do when it started getting, you had to slide. Like, your slide game wasn't adequate.
You got to do the Tootsie slide.
You got to get low. You got to get low up under them. You got to have leverage.
Too high going through the line.
Exactly. But yeah, that's how I feel. I don't want Jimmy G. I blanked
on where we're at.
We're talking about that Davis show. I'm Kenneth Davis. That's Ryan Bukoveski. We're talking about the Bears' options as far as during this quarterback carousel that's taking place.
By the way, it was Jets 2, Dolphins 3, Falcons 4, Bengals 5.
Okay, and with the Falcons may get rid of Matt Ryan, I wouldn't listen. I wouldn't be mad to end up with Matt Ryan. I feel better about Matt Ryan than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, me too.
I wouldn't be mad, but I would be like, okay, you got Matt Ryan. So when you gonna draft this quarterback, and we're gonna wait till next year to get this quarterback? Because it's like, let's not lie to ourselves. But I wouldn't be upset. But you would have to, Allen Robinson would have to stay, because we know Matt Ryan needs a whole bunch of riches.
Go up and get it?
An embarrassment of riches. You can't have him out there with this Donnell Mooney and Wims and think it's going to work. Like, you got to give him some weapons, right? Like,
Anthony Miller doesn't even get the call.
Right. He used to look this way, have Calvin Ridley, this way have Julio Jones. He's going to look this way, have Mooney and Wims.
All right, now, Riley, I had your brother, Calvin. I'm going to turn you into a good player, too.
Exactly. So, look, best case scenario for you, if the Bears don't get Deshaun Watson, what would you want them to do with the QB position, Ryan?
Oh, boy. I don't know, honestly, because, part of me thinks, just go get the Matt Ryans of the world, someone that can flat out just, play the position in the NFL and can play it at a somewhat elite level at times, even if they're not elite. But, even with, Matt Ryan, who I think is probably my favorite out of the whatevers, you got to have an offensive line around him.
Right.
He's getting paid a lot of money. Do they even have the cap? Like you said, does Allen Robinson even stay if you bring in a high-priced quarterback? Can you even afford that? So I just don't even know if it works money-wise, if it works with the personnel on the roster right now. So part of me kind of leans young rookie quarterback, like you said, too, how cheap they are. I mean, you could maybe potentially fix some things while fixing the quarterback position. That sounds really nice, but, boy, I don't like who's picking them. I don't like who's picking this quarterback. I mean, I like guys in this draft, and I think you've got to go after one, essentially round one. I mean, you could go tackle. I don't have a huge problem if they stay pat and get a tackle in the first round, but you got to make sure that there's a guy there. That's my only issue, is sometimes those tackles, they run up pretty dry by the end of the top 10. And then what do? Do you just pick up the best tackle, or do you start getting serious about quarterback?
We're going to end up with Mac Jones. I'm not dissing Mac Jones, but we're going to end up with Mac Jones, man. Like, another guy that you just alluded to is going to need a line. It's going to need weapons. All right, you had Devontae Smith. You had Wendell, even though we know he got Waddle, even though Waddle got hurt this year with the ankle. But still, you had all the guys that he had there last year when he sat in for Tua when Tua got hurt. Yes, we know the
embarrassment. And Devontae Smith.
Exactly. The embarrassment of riches that Alabama has, especially at wide receiver. But listen, Mac Jones stepped up. Has Heisman winner this year. I mean, not the Heisman winner Devontae Smith was, but still he was a Heisman finalist, but stepped up this year in a way that they didn't think. They didn't think he was going to win the starting job, and he was like, no, that's my position, and got himself into the first round this year, where it seemed like his best bet was he could maybe be a second rounder. But so I'm not saying like it'll be the worst case scenario, but out of all these guys, but I'll say this to you. I wonder, and you made me think about this when you said you don't trust who's picking the quarterback. Usually when someone makes a decision, especially a blunder, sometimes they'll stick to their guns to do the same thing. Like, for instance, we watched Naked and Afraid, right? And we decided to watch Naked and Afraid XLs from like 2017. Where
extra large.
Yeah, extra large. Oh, Naked and Afraid. But usually it's two people together, a man and a woman. Sometimes they'll have two women together. So far, I've seen two dudes briefly before they join two groups together to make a 14 group. This time they have 4 teams, and the teams have 2 people, but then they threw in a third person, and these people were all people that failed mightily in the past, right? And this guy who failed in Panama, he came with duct tape, and he was like, I forgot what he called it. He was like, it's the redneck something was what he said, not me. So he had duct tape. So he got kicked in. Now he's going to join a group, and these groups had only been together half a day. But when the third person comes, it's like, who the hell are you, right? It's like, and they're like, we were getting along just fine. It was like, y'all just got here 15
We
days.
made it through a night without your ass.
They didn't even make it to a night, Ryan. It was the same day. It was like
we made it through a sunset without your ass.
Exactly, right? So what he ends up doing is laying around during the daytime, and then occasionally trying to go hunt and not coming back with anything. Well, like if you watch Naked and Afraid, you always got to worry about your house or your Burma and fire. All right, depending on what style of house you can do the A-frame, you can do different things, but it's shelter and fire, and then water and food. You know what I'm saying? Water may be a little bit higher depending on how you can dehydrate it, because you can only do 3 days without water, but you can do 18 days basically without food. So this dude's sitting there laying around, and again, he brings duct tape. And it's like, wait, you failed the last time, and you brought this duct tape, and he's trying to make blankets with it. He's using it for like, it's just stupid reasons. It's like, that's why you brought this, right?
I just needed to go to Costco and get the super large value.
He did this time. Listen, the first time it was like this. The second time it was like this. And he left it. They banished him.
That was it. That's why I lost. That's
they banished him.
The quantity of my duct tape.
They were like, you're not going to get your stuff? He's like, no, I'm leaving. I'm going. They can have it. But the point that I'm making is,
as the roll of duct tape settles.
Right. It frowns. But the point that I'm making is this. Some people stick to their guns and make a mistake and still, I guess the definition of insanity, do the exact same thing expecting a different outcome. But some people go totally opposite, and we're talking about Ryan Pace and picking a quarterback. So if initially,
so you think Ryan Pace is coming with duct tape in that draft?
No, I think he's going to. I think he's definitely coming with a new weapon, and I'm fearful about that because I think he's going to be like, "Give me the whatever black quarterback falls to me, bring him to me." And look, man, you have opined for Trey Lance for over a year, right? But I don't know if I don't know how Trey Lance up I am as I used to be, right? Zach Wilson didn't look like Zach Wilson back when I was taking place. Right. You know what I'm saying? And even if efficiency wise, last year, because Trey Lance only played one game this season, and it wasn't a great game, but he didn't throw any picks last year against lesser competition. You still saw Justin Fields in Ohio State had a couple games where he was throwing some picks, and that was the thing last season that you liked about Justin Fields. So I don't know if we can get that guy, but I feel he's going to be like, just bring him to me, right? And it's just like, oh, no.
See, I was thinking the opposite. I thought he was going to come in with, I went to Costco, I got the duct tape. Who is the Mitchiest of all these Mitchian prospects? Double down on Mitch.
Who is, so we're going to get Trask. We're gonna get Trask from from Florida.
Yeah, Matt Jones isn't athletic enough.
No, it's not athletic enough. Nope.
I think Zach Wilson might be too talented to be Mitch.
Oh, listen, he creams.
He's the Mitch prototype.
He creams himself over Zach Wilson. You know, he rolls up, twists and turns in bed thinking about Zach Wilson.
Right. He's praying to the Mormon God to get Zach Wilson.
God Smith, please. Definitely. But listen, we only
Mr. Smythe, I need
you. It reminds me of that episode. That's what I meant to say, Smythe. It reminds me of that episode of South Park when it was like, yeah, you can't see it. It's in this hat. You know what I'm saying? It's like, wait, let me see the tablet. No, you can't see the tablets. We shouldn't touch on that. But listen, before we get out of here, man, you know what time it is. Unless you had something else. You had something else you want to add as far as the Bears and what they may do when it comes to
Well, we got to talk this Super Bowl, baby.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, Super Bowl problem that I have right now. I think the Tampa's going to win.
Ooh.
Yeah, I do. And maybe I'm doing that because I'm hoping that I'm wrong and that my baby goat defeats the goat.
Now it's mine.
He's my baby goat. All right. You put some respect on our show. All right. And mention Ryan and myself when you use baby goat. All right. You put some respect on that. All right.
For real.
That's where put some respect on that. But
you heard it here first, literally.
I mean, listen, with both tackles being out, all right, with Fisher being out, dude, like we saw the heat. Now we know that the DBs can be suspect. Now I don't even know if both their safeties are healthy. I would think one of them
Winfield, I think, is
Winfield
on track
Jr.'s,
to come back.
Winfield Jr.'s back, and then the other one's Whitehead. So I mean, but it wasn't like they were world beaters. Winfield Jr.'s a rookie, so it's not like they were world beaters.
But he's up there for, I think, he's probably not defensive rookie, but he was in consideration for a while.
But their defensive backs when it comes to passing in the NFL, their rank, I think, is in the 20s. You know what I'm saying? It's that upfront pressure that they, Todd Bowles is bringing heat. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles.
Boy, he would have looked good in a Bears sideline gear.
Todd Bowles is like Greg Williams with a conscience and some ingenuity. You know, like, okay, I know I can't zero blitz all the time, right? Zero blitz, right?
Do I care about my offense and my team?
Right, so
I'll blitz a lot, just not all the time.
Right, or just leave everybody, just leave a hole center open. So,
Vilma, why don't you cover everybody? What are you doing?
Again, I'm just looking at the facts. I mean, I think Andy Reid is crafty enough, but dude, you lost both of your tackles on a team that loves to bring the heat. Man, they're gonna get Patrick Mahomes down. You know what I'm saying? And another thing too, his worst game in his career was the Super Bowl. It was the Houston half. The first half was against the Texans, right? Because it wasn't as bad as the Super Bowl. The first 3 quarters in the Super Bowl, but still, we haven't seen him kick ass in the Super Bowl from the beginning, the kickoff to the end. Now he has to play like that. I feel like if they're going to beat Tampa Bay with the pressure that Tampa Bay's front seven can bring, like that's the thing to me. Like you're gonna have to keep Kelsey in a lot more. You still got a whole bunch of weapons, but still, that's my fear. I want Kansas City to win, but I feel like without their tackles, now if they had their tackles, I'd be all in on Kansas City. But I think we're overlooking a lot. We're putting a lot on Patrick Mahomes' talent if we think he can overcome not having his 2 starting tackles, and one of them being the number 1 pick in the draft some years back. So that's my feeling. What's yours?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, especially when you look at the talent on the Bucs defensive line with Shaq Barrett, Pierre-Paul, and Ndamukong Suh. Like, they got some guys and Vita Vea too. I should throw him in there.
Mm-hmm.
They got some guys.
Don't forget White. Don't forget White too. And I know you're talking about just up front, but I'm just saying, don't forget him coming down.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? Like they sweet. That's
what I'm talking about. Like, you've got 4, maybe not premier talent, but maybe just a little bit below that.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw what they did in Green Bay. I mean, they were in Aaron Rodgers' front yard all day long and getting him on the ground. And, like, you throw in there with the Todd Bowles, the blitzing from Devin White, Levante David, and all the various corners that they have, because their defensive backs, maybe what they lack in talent or, like experience, they make up for with crazy athleticism and just a no-holds-barred, like, I'm going to be up in you and take you down and just attack you. And it's kind of like that too young and too stupid to realize where they're at right now. Right, exactly. Definitely. So I like that mix against that Chiefs offense. They're going to have, I think, some opportunities. I think the real big thing is just Tampa trying to play the same game that they played against Green Bay, but they got to cut out those Tom Brady interceptions. I mean, he can't do that again. That's, I think, where the big part of this game is, because I like this matchup of Bucs defense, Chiefs offense. I think it's going to be back and forth, and there's going to be some give and take. It's going to be, I would say, maybe not the same, but like San Francisco defense versus Chiefs offense. Mm-hmm. Eventually, the Chiefs broke through and made that defense look kind of pedestrian. But for a while, that 49ers defense looked like the best defense in the league. And not that I expect the Bucs to be like that, but I think the Bucs will make it difficult at times on this Chiefs offense, like you said, with the injuries. And it's going to be opportunities for this Bucs offense to take advantage that the defense gives them. Can they take advantage of those opportunities, though? Because this Chiefs defense, too, they're opportunistic themselves. They've got some nice players on that side of the ball.
Yeah, this is my last point is I want to say this. That Davis show, I'm Kenneth Davis. That's Ryan Bukoveski. The last thing I'll say, and this is for the Chiefs to help the Chiefs, that's not last year's defense. Now, that's last year's defense and that when they needed it in the Super Bowl, but they're not world beaters, but they're stingier than what they were going into last season. You know what I'm saying? Like so that and again, when you're talking about as far as what Brady did in Green Bay, you know what I'm saying? Like those guys, I would say in a way, I think situationally, the Chiefs defense is better than Green Bay. Situationally, I would say. I think they're better. All right. So that's my last part. My last caveat when it comes to the Super Bowl. But I hope the Chiefs win. It's time to go off the grabs. I'm sorry.
I like that Chiefs defense a lot when you took a look at them compared to Green Bay. Yeah. Chris Jones is easily, to me, better than Frank Clark of Green Bay. Mm-hmm. But let's say they're a wash because they're both premier inside defensive tackles. I take Frank Clark above any of the Smiths. Right. We talk about pass rushing. Right. And then you go down the line a little bit, like Sorensen's a really nice player. They got some guys.
Let's not forget, you know what I'm saying, you got Matthew back there who is like just
the Honey Badger.
Honey Badger is killing. You know, that money was well served when they gave him that dough. So that's better than the Chiefs defense from last year. I think that defense will play better than Green Bay's defense did against the Bucs in the NFC Championship game. So can we go for up grabs now?
We can.
All right, let's go, Ryan Beaskey. Let's go up for grabs. Ryan Beaskey, what you got for me?
Let's keep it with the Super Bowl. And if you're the betting man for the MVP, are you taking the quarterbacks or the rest of the field?
Quarterbacks. It's two.
Specifically, do you, one over the other you like better? Maybe go.
There we go.
I don't really like Tom for Super Bowl MVP. I don't see
it. I don't feel it. I think I'll say this much. A great point. If when you bringing this, I'm putting this up grabs. I feel like if Tampa wins, it may be a defensive player like that. I think if Tampa, because basically we're saying that Tampa's going to have to get to Patrick Mahomes, right? And we said that from the point they don't have their tackles. So I think it'll be a defensive player if Tampa wins, but I definitely know if Kansas City wins, it's going to be because of Patrick Mahomes.
Who was the Tampa Bay MVP against the Packers? If that was the Super Bowl, who was the Super Bowl MVP?
That's a good question.
You probably have to go defense, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember. Was it Ladarius Smith? How many sacks did only one Smith brother play well? I feel like I don't feel like
I feel like one only plays.
Right, I know, right? Yeah. I don't. It's a good question.
Zadarius is the good one, I think.
Okay.
And then I don't even know the name of the other Smythe.
So I would have to say, because I mean, really, if Tom didn't throw those picks, it was Tom Brady,
right?
Because he basically put the nail in the coffin.
But he threw.
Yeah, but he threw that back into the game. I can't call it.
It probably got to be Shaq Barrett or JPP, right?
Good one. Yeah, that's a good one. I would say I feel like JPP may have had the better game. I feel like his name was called more.
Like him from the inside, that reminded me of New York all over.
Yeah, dude, the NASCAR package, dude. Like, listen, with like 2 or 3 of them, how many he has? But right. It's like he was out there getting.
He reminded me of Justin Tuck. He was tucking away those fingers.
All right, what else you got for us?
Switching over to baseball, how long do you think the baseball season should be? And recently, MLB or the union, right, rejected the 154 game proposal by the league.
I think they should postpone it a month, like the owners want, because I know they want to push it closer to perhaps when maybe you can get some people to come to the stadiums. Also, it just needs to be shorter because you're going to end up having to make some games up probably anyway. You know, like it gives you, and I know you're pushing it back, so you can like, wait, you're pushing it back. But if you're shortening the season, you're not going to have to make up as many games as you would if you're playing the entirety of the season. You know what I'm saying? So that's to me is a reason. And also baseball is long as hell, not dissonant. I want it to be long as hell, but just knowing how everything took place last year when it came to the MLB, and when you look at like the teams like the Marlins were like the first team I feel like that got hit and stung by COVID-19, and I mean we still don't have vaccines, and it'll be a terrible look if you all these people that need vaccinations and you're about to give it to some players. So we know they're not going to get vaccinated. And on top of that, how many of them are openly going to even take it? So getting into the warmer months, getting to where you can be outside and probably bring in some more revenue. I lean towards the owners on this one. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with the owners as well. That's why I was wondering what you think is a good number for a season, because I would like them to shorten it and significantly a little bit just to see what that looks like. Like maybe let's do 120 or get around 100. I feel like that's a good sample or a good size. And I don't know. I just feel like 154, that's what, 8 games less than normal?
I was going to say 140. Well, I would say for me, like probably 144 would probably be it. But I wouldn't be mad if you went to 130. But I'll say this, when we're saying this, baseball being a game of habit, because what we're basically saying, we would start spacing out some more games, right? I wonder when you're taking these guys out of their habit, how well, like, I mean, you're hitting every day, and now you go to where.
Well, one thing, I wouldn't mind seeing the World Series actually end in October instead of being pushed over into November all the time.
I agree with you. I just don't know if I wonder how it'll affect the players, especially initially, to go from.
Well, what if you started a little bit later? Because I hate how it starts too. It's just so ugly outside. Like, what if you started mid-April and you got that for sure World Series in before the end of October and basically kept the normal pacing the same? It would just be different.
That would work for me. You know,
I would love that too.
I feel like you can take away 15 to 20 games, you know what I'm saying, out of the season. And it'll be fine. That'll work. You know, and also even giving them an extra day off, you know what I'm saying, you know, just benefits them. I just don't want it to be, for instance, like they only play 3 games in a week. You know what I'm saying? Like then it'll be like, why? Like it'll be whoa, because it'd be so disappointed. Right. Just think of it, like it'd be so crazy. These guys are used to going, back to back to back. Like think about you. Wouldn't pitch perhaps for almost a week and a half.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
1 week you had 6 games, the next week you have 3.
Yeah, like what? Like, but I guess what? Maybe I shouldn't say that. That's if you're sticking to a 5-man rotation. But you'll use a guy more often because he gets 5 days off. You know what I'm saying? So you may play him every week because there's enough time in it to where all right, he's going to get a start. But the rest of you guys are just going to be like long stretch guys because we only need 3 to 4 guys really if you spaced it out like that. So that's my thought. What's the last one, Ryan?
Last one I have is just where the Bulls are at right now, sitting in the 9th spot, 2 games back from the 8th seed. Are we liking the direction that they're flowing in right now, or is it just kind of too early still?
No, we're liking it. You got damed Sunday night, which that happens, right? I said I was going to sign mine. Sean was irate, but that happens, and stuff like that happens with the young team. But it's also Damian Lillard. Like it's only him and 2 other guys that may do that, especially from that stature in the NBA. And the only one that consistently can do it is Steph. And it's Dame right now. Dame is actually doing that better than Steph. Dame is the better point guard than Steph right now. Dame is number 1, I feel like, in NBA as far as point guards go, right? For really the last 3 years, I would say at least. And then you can argue, was it Steph or whatever. But that was one, but they were still in the game. But then when you look at last night games against the Knicks, Laurie led in scoring. Thaddeus Young almost had another triple-double. They played well, you know what I'm saying? And that's with Wendell being out. I like it. You know what I'm saying? Them being at 9th right now, you see the benefit of coaching. You want more out of it. But this is one of those years where, especially when you're looking at the front office, being brand new, you're trying to find out what you got, you know what I'm saying? But getting Billy Donovan definitely was a coup for a rebuilding franchise. We'll see if it's a rebuild or be hastened depending on what takes place during the trade deadline in this offseason. If they're lucky enough to have somebody that wants to come here that's a name. But I like it. You know what I'm saying? I have to say I like it. I don't think we're fully lathered in the basketball yet. You know what I'm saying? But it's funny, I was during the preseason. I want to make sure my lather is correct. But yeah, I like it. What about you?
Yeah, I'm okay with everything right now. I want to see more from the players, but I hold that on the players, not necessarily Billy Donovan or Arturas in that front office or anything like that. I guess for me, it's just this kind of wait and see with the Bulls because there's so many guys that I think we've kind of figured out where they're at. Like we talked about with like Laurie, Zach, like none of these guys are number 1s on a championship team. So you're just hoping that I guess you see enough value out of them that they become attractive trade pieces or maybe pieces for you in the future that you're going to have to put around a number 1 once you finally get there. But yeah, I like Billy Donovan making this team a little bit better just with his development. I think that the players are reacting a little bit better, and I would love to see them just in the playoffs. I would just love to see, especially if we're talking about that next big summer as their free agency that they're going to try to be big pushers in. You have to have a presence nationally. So the only way you can really do that is if you get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you. Great point. And also, we already know that they only gave us half of the season. There's a chance they'll be in the bubble. And if you can get in the playoffs and be in the bubble and all those players are around each other, it also allows those other players to see your team, you know what I'm saying, and see, and also be around your team to maybe, it's kind of like an Olympic situation, but it's for not the entire NBA, but for the teams, not the 8 teams that won't make it, for all the other teams. So yeah, I'm with you. I definitely like what I'm seeing. And it would be good. Usually I'm like, let's get a draft pick. But I mean, if they make it to the play-in and they still, are like 9th or 10th, that's low enough to where with the lottery being unweighed a little bit, you may leap up like you did this year. But yeah, I like it too.
Right.
All right. We always appreciate it. You all go out and be productive when we bring you this morning session. I did want to get into Ryan's life a little bit, but we don't have the time. We'll have to do it next show. The Ryan check-in.
It's like the smoke. It's the smoke. It's hard to catch with your big hands.
The Ryan check-in. But Ryan, you go out. You definitely have a productive day. I'll try to do the same. Everybody else, definitely take care of yourself. And we always appreciate you joining that, Davis, and spend a little bit of time with us.